Thanks for listening to the Mornings with Carmen LaBerge podcast, made available thanks to support from listeners just like you.
Encouraging you to live as an ambassador of God's kingdom in the world. This is Mornings with Carmen LaBerge on Faith Radio.
If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, arms held wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise. By your power we will go. By your spirit we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions.
Baby talk. Baby talk. I baby talk my dogs. I don't mind telling you. I am a big baby talker to dogs. I just am. I'm Carmen LaBerge. This is Mornings with Carmen on the Faith Radio Network. Do you baby talk anybody? I don't really so much baby talk children. I speak to children as if they are learning to speak appropriately. So I don't baby talk children. I confess that. I do baby talk dogs. I also baby talk cows. I might be a baby talker to animals. There you go. Are you a baby talker? Do you talk baby? Hey, how about talking about babies? It's a Christmas. Christmas is coming. And it's about a baby. Let's not miss what Christmas is really all about. It's about a baby. And so this is the time of year when we ought to be talking about babies. And as soon as I say that out loud, I know that in your heart, you are incredibly mindful of the pain related to pregnancy loss. I know that because a huge percentage of our moms, our sisters, our daughters, our granddaughters have suffered pregnancy loss, our wives. And for those of you who have women in your life right now who are desperately desiring to have a baby and are having either difficult conceiving or difficulty carrying a baby to term, I know that when we start talking babies, it is really, really hard. And so I want you to know that I'm aware of that and I feel that. And both the celebration of a baby on the way and the despair of not being able to conceive when you believe it's the right time to have a baby and a baby is not forthcoming. Both of those realities are realities in the lives of young couples who I love very, very much. And so I'm praying today for those families who desperately want a baby and are having difficulty conceiving or have suffered pregnancy loss. And I'm praying today for women who are pregnant and didn't plan to be. May you regard yourself as highly favored. You are the vessel of a blessing through whom God intends to deliver a child into this world, a child who he conceived of in his heart of hearts before the foundations of the earth. And I'm praying today for those who are preparing for the children that God will send in whatever manner they come into our lives, however they come. That's the kind of baby talk we need to be having. Our Growing Your Faith verse of the day comes from Galatians chapter 4, verses 4 and 5. When the right time came, God sent his son, born of a woman, subject to the law. God sent him to buy freedom for us who were slaves to the law so that he could adopt us as his very own children. You hear that? You hear the baby talk in there? You hear the talk of children in there? We often focus on the why of Galatians 4, 4, and 5. Why did God send Jesus? Well, so that he could adopt us as his very own children. Like there is a redemptive purpose for the birth of Christ. But Paul is also clear in these verses about the how. Jesus was born of a woman. When the right time came, God sent his son born of a woman, subject to the realities of this fallen and broken world, subject to the law. Why does that matter? because it matters that Jesus is conceived of the Holy Spirit, that he is God's own son, that he is fully God. But it also matters for our benefit that Jesus is fully man, the God-man, conceived of by God, yes, but born of a woman, at just the right time in human history to accomplish God's eternal will. So, guess who's coming to town, or guess who's coming for Christmas, or guess who's about to arrive? Well, all of the answers to those questions are Jesus. He is on the way. And we're going to celebrate his birth in just a few short weeks. We call it Christmas. But on an entirely different note, have you heard of Krampus? I'm going to confess to you, I had not heard of Krampus. And now that I have heard of Krampus, I'm freaked out. Just going on record this morning and saying the demonic anti-Santa, who isn't just coming to town, in many cases he's already here. I'm just going on the record and saying I am not a fan. Not a fan of Krampus. You're saying to yourself, who is Krampus? Well, Krampus hails from the Alpine towns of Central Europe. Krampus wears a red cloak trimmed with white fur, just like Santa Claus. But underneath the robes, there is, not jolly old St. Nicholas, but the body of a hairy-horned, goat-like monster with spindly, sharp fingernails and a long, creepy tongue. Think like, what was that band that had that guy with that long, think that, yeah. For centuries, according to regional folklore, Krampus has been sort of like the bad cop to St. Nick's good cop. So you got jolly old Kris Kringle, who gives out presents, and you got Krampus, who beats kids with sticks. Krampus! I have never heard of Krampus, and yet, this year, 6.5-foot tall animatronic Krampus is available. And people are putting Krampus on their front porch and in their yard decor. And they're dressing those giant skeletons up that they got for their Halloween decor. And they're putting a red cloak on that skelly and turning him into Krampus. And I wasn't aware of this either. There are towns across America hosting Christmas haunted houses. I didn't know those existed either. All of this to say, it appears that we're just seeking to find more and more ways to pervert the real meaning of Christmas and to turn it into something that it just is not. It's about a baby, and his name is Jesus. And my invitation is to get fully centered on him and prepare for the way that God intends to deliver us through the baby he delivers, through a woman named Mary. Our friend Nick Pitts is going to join us next, and we are going to survey some of the headlines of the day. I'm going to straight up ask him, who is Sabrina Carpenter? What did she do? And why should we care? That's up next here on Mornings with Carmen. Our friend Nick Pitts is joining us today. I feel confident he is all up to speed on baby talk. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Carmen. Happy Tuesday to y'all.
Mm-hmm. Do you baby talk your dog?
Baby talk my dog? That would be no. I think my baby, though, will learn that her first words will probably be, Freddie, no. Or Freddie, stop. Or Freddie, down. Our dog is 18 months, and he knows keenly what not to do. And he's a wild teenager. It's a wild teenager of a dog that is in desperate need of training. And our daughter just smiles and smiles whenever I yell at him constantly to stop eating that which is not edible and doing that which is not prohibited. Wow.
I love it. So I'm trying to get people, to to be talking baby because it's, getting to be the baby time of year and Jesus. And so I just confessed that, although we need to have serious conversations about the reality of who Jesus is, I baby talk. I don't baby talk babies so much, but I do baby talk my dogs and my cows. I speak to them in tones that I don't use with human beings, and they're responsive.
Baby?
Anyway, I know.
Baby talk cows. I've never heard that.
Oh my gosh. Mine come they now come running across the field when I give them. I know. I know. It might be a problem. Who is Sabrina Carpenter? What did she do and why should we care?
Great question. Sabrina Carpenter is a young American singer, pop star. You might have recognized her from some Disney shows that she's moved on from now, and now she is causing headlines in a new way, in that she has decided to film one of her latest music videos out of a church, and to say that it would be provocative dancing might be the understatement of the year. And then also to just kind of share some questionable props in a church and just acting unbecoming, dancing upon an altar. That's caused quite a stir within a church up in New York, and now has generated headlines causing us to question, do these people really know who God is?
Well, and the use of a sacred space, a church, for the filming of this particular video, I think part of this goes to the question of the use of our churches, what we allow to happen there, the funding needs that churches have. Obviously they're renting themselves out for all kinds of things these days. There's a responsibility that we have as stewards of the places and spaces that we consider sacred, and to not allow these kinds of things to take place in those spaces. I mean, the co-opting of so many Christian things in relationship to this clearly non-Christian, even anti-Christian messaging and video. Do you see where I'm trying to get us to consider what we allow to happen in the spaces that we have intentionally set apart? All space is sacred, right? It's not as if there's a sacred secular divide, but we have intentionally set some spaces apart as holy unto God.
Yeah, I completely agree. The sacred secular divide. I never want to continue to further buttress that, but I also want to recognize the reality that whether there were individuals for hundreds of years that have, I'll just say this for this church in particular, I think about the widow's mite. I think about those men and women before us that gave of their very last in order that there might be a space for themselves as well as for future generations to seek the Lord and to find solace and comfort in his promises, and to listen to and participate in communion, to listen to teachings, etc. And for someone, and I think that I don't want to take away the responsibility of the individuals that rent out the church now, because I do know that's a growing industry. There's a number of churches. A fast growing industry is turning old churches into condominiums, into restaurants. I mean, there's even one in Nashville. There's a great restaurant in Nashville that used to be a former church. I think it's a barbecue place now. And so I know that there's a industry that wants these spaces that individuals from prior generations have set aside and given their money to in order that people might find and learn about who God is. But I just think that we need to be aware and be conscientious when we're doing such things. And then two, kind of what I really wanted to push at is I'm just bummed. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad at Sabrina Carpenter. I expect lost people to act like lost people. Mm-hmm. I'm just bummed and sad that she doesn't have a good reason to dance. She might have a reason to dance in her music video and dance upon an altar, but she doesn't have a good reason to dance like David before the Lord because of the joy of his promises and his deliverance. She doesn't I don't think she fully comprehends the idea of a God that, it says in Galatians 1, that was delighted to reveal himself to us, a God that has lavished his love upon us, that's not contingent on our behavior towards him. I don't think she's comprehended the idea of a God that sent his son to die so that she might experience the fullness of life and the completion of her joy. I'm just bummed that she chooses to use that God in that space for purposes when he wants to do so much more. I'm just bummed that she's missing out on that.
Yeah, that's really good language. I'm bummed too. That's a good word for it. We're going to come back in just a moment with a better media story. Chevrolet has a holiday to remember advertisement that we want to talk about. So that's up next here on Mornings with Carmen. Feelings, nothing more than feelings. I mean, seriously, if all we had was nothing more than feelings, we would just be lost in a sea of mush. Hello, friend. I'm sure you have noticed by now that feelings are a terrible barometer of the truth. Our feelings are affected by the weather, world events, what we ate last night, whether or not someone we like or love texted or tagged us in a social post, how badly someone else sings. Yeah. So if you're feeling lonely right now, I want you to ask yourself, am I really ever truly alone? Of course not. As a follower of Christ, Jesus promises to be with you always. He's literally with you right now, in the thick of it, in the midst of whatever circumstances you're dealing with in your life. So I want to be a source of hope and encouragement to you today. If you are struggling to make it, even just to the next moment, if you're feeling lonely, text the word hope to 877-933-2484. Our friend Nick Pitts is here with us. Nick, have you seen Chevrolet's A Holiday to Remember advertisement?
Oh my goodness, Carmen. I think there was something that flew in my eye while I was watching it. there was some substance that was coming. I don't know what it was. It was just, yes, I've seen it. I have gone through a variety of emotions with it. And it is yet another reason why our holidays are just such a special, special time of the year.
Hey, if you haven't seen it and you want me to send you the direct link, you can send me a text, 877-933-2484. I'll send you the link. Tell people what happens in Chevrolet's A Holiday to Remember advertisement. I mean, obviously they're selling trucks, but actually the one that is advertised the one that's in the video, you can't buy because it's super old. But, tell us what happens in the video.
Yeah, so we're getting this picture of a holiday meal. Family, multiple generations are gathering together, and in the corner we have an older woman who is suffering from dementia, just kind of isolated. And if you are one of there's approximately 7 million Americans who have a family member that is suffering with some form of dementia, and so for tens of millions of Americans, they know that feeling very well, where there can just be a sense of alienation, there can be a sense of loss and despair and hopelessness. But there is in this commercial, and it slips by. When I hear 5, I don't want to turn anyone off when I say it's 5 minutes long, because it seems like it's just 2 seconds.
Yeah, no.
But then
it is totally 5 minutes worth to watch. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And then so you have this woman that is suffering from dementia in the corner by herself, holidays where everybody's coming together. Well, then one millennial, I'm assuming it's around a millennial age girl, decides to take grandma out for a ride in the old car that she had so many memories with, and takes her around town and talks about all of the moments that were made those places so special. And it's just so heartwarming. And then she comes back to the house, and her husband is there to bring her back into the house to continue to participate in this celebratory family meal where multiple generations have gathered together. It's just such a rich commercial, and just a reminder of just the lengths that families can go, and just be heartwarmed because of it. It's a rich commercial.
I'm going to be quick to say that dementia is progressive, and we want to be quick to say that not every person with advancing dementia is going to respond as the grandmother in the video responds. Not everyone is going to have those moments of awakening. But there's something very sweet about going back to the places that, particularly our family members with Alzheimer's, going back to the places that they do remember, helping them to return to those places where lucidity remains possible. And so, yes, it is. I know people are texting. They're like, Jesus isn't at the center of what they're doing. We're trying to have a conversation here about the reality. The reality of the challenges that we face in our families and the simple humanity of reconnecting with one another.
But here, and maybe call me crazy, call me far-fetched, but I'd love to see the gospel rhythms in this commercial. Let's think about it for a second, and maybe call me wrong with this. We have a God that we know that we are prone to wonder. We know that we're prone to forget who God is, volitionally and just unbeknowingly to us. But yet we have a God that continually seeks out and reminds us, like Hosea did with Gomer, reminds us of who he is, reminds us of where he's taking us from, and continues to shower us with love unconditionally. And his love isn't contingent upon what we do, but upon who he is. And even though we might be faithless, he's faithful, for he can't deny himself. That's what he says in 2 Timothy. And so what we see are there gospel rhythms of just this woman that is reaching out to an older generation that's not willing to forget about her, but is wanting to love her and come alongside her. I think that's not the main reason for the commercial, but I think that you can see how God could be working in the lessons that God wants to teach, even through this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a really good point. You and I have both read a little bit about millennials who apparently think that their parents exist to raise their grandkids. So can you talk a little bit about young adults who are now married and have kids of their own? Maybe you and your wife fall into that category. But my guess is you do not have the expectation that her parents and or your parents are going to put off, their own life in order to raise your child.
Yeah, this subject has hit a little bit. This touches a little bit closer to home for us as somebody that I've got an 8-month-old right now at the house, and so we are actually going back to Tennessee this weekend and can't wait. And I think my parents can't wait to see Dottie. They could give two rips about seeing me, but that's a whole nother story. And so I do know that many of my millennial friends, as well as those that are millennial newborn parents, there's just a greater and greater expectation to help out because, again, what you have that differentiates us from previous generations is that you have two individuals in the family that are working. It's not just a one income household anymore, and so there's just a greater expectation for grandma and grandpa to help out. And then there's just for some there's less of a inclination to want to help. Either one, because they want older generation, a boomer generation wants to live their life, or two, wants to just has their own life that they want to live. But I would say that's I can't relate to that experience just because both my wife and I are out of town. And so any chance that we get to go home, or any chance our parents get to come see little Dottie, they are jumping head over foot to make their way here. So, but yeah, we're just continuing to see, I think it's just the reality of two parents that are both working in the household, a greater expectation to help out, especially when childcare costs are so high.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I will say, as a grandparent who has the expectation of more grandbabies, maybe even one in this next year, or more, who knows, right? Because, a year is a long time. A year is enough time to have, to go through the whole process and have a baby. So Grandma Carmen may be, more blessed with more grandbabies in the year to come. And I will say that there is a particular joy in being able to give time as a gift. And that really is the gift. The gift is the gift of time, and time shared. And it doesn't really matter what we're doing. It just matters that we're that we're there and that we're present and that we're loving and that we're caring. I may not be the quote unquote fun grandma that takes them to do all the things. That just might not be how they remember me when they grow up. But, I'll be the one that made it possible for, you to have something to do that was meaningful to you while everybody else was doing what everybody else was doing. Like, I'm super intentional about each one's individual personality and their needs. And so I just think that you sort of find your own rhythm as a grandparent. And it's not that I'm the drop-off spot. However, I mean, if you drop your kid off, I'm going to probably put them to work. So only drop off the kid that wants to work. That would be, because, no, we live on a working farm. So, there's always something that needs doing.
Oh, yeah. And I think you bring up a great point. Like it's the picture of Lois and Eunice, right? From Timothy.
Yeah, that's right.
Of Paul being so very grateful for the good deposit they put in young Timothy, of his mother and his grandmother in him. You do not want kids that just take advantage of parents. And of course we don't want that. That's failing to see the gift for parents that they are. But also for grandparents that might be reluctant to help out their kids or to be grandparents, to don't miss out on that opportunity. Like you said, there's a reason why, especially that's what makes this article so timely. This is the Advent season. This is Emmanuel, this is God with us. There is the greatest gift you can give someone is your time. It's because it's yourself. We only have 24 hours in a day. How do you want to spend that time that you have in a day? I'm reminded, and I think this applies as well to grandparenting, but more so to parenting, of the Andy Stanley line. He talks about how perhaps the greatest thing you can do in this world isn't necessarily something you do, but someone you raise. And I just want to be very cognizant of the time that I've been given. Yes, I can't spend on working, but I can spend on sharpening an arrow and shooting it as far as I can towards the glory of God, so that it might create joy in her soul and good in this world.
That's so good. That's so good. That's so precious. Hey, for those of you who are grandparents and you want a little encouragement, maybe you want to improve your Christian grandparenting, I just encourage you to check out Legacy Coalition. They're doing really good work. Nick, as always, thank you so much, brother. We really appreciate it. Hey, as we pivot to, it's just great to be with you. As we pivot to our conversation with our friend Luke Moon from the Philos Project, you guys know that the headlines are about to get pretty heavy, because we're going to be talking about the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas terrorists in Gaza. And we talked about the growing regional conflict and U.S. engagement. If you were to Google it today, what is going to top the headline news across every media outlet, the front page of the New York Times, the lead at the BBC, CNN, Fox, NBC, Business Insider, National Review, doesn't really matter which one you turn to right now, on the topic of Israel, the lead headline is going to be the eyewitness accounts of sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas against Israeli women and men. And so that is, we've been talking about it, but we've been talking about the fact that mainstream media has not been talking about it, and now they are, which leads us to be increasingly prayerful about all of those and for all of those involved. Our friend Luke Moon is going to join us next. We are going to do a little update on what is happening in the Israeli war, and we're also going to talk about, what's next, what happens after. You're listening to Mornings with Carmen. Our friend Luke Moon is back. You can find him and lots of resources at philosproject.org. Philos like Philadelphia, like friend, PHILOS, philosproject.org. Good morning, Luke.
Good morning, Carmen.
October the 7th is just going to be a day that now marks not only the history of a place and a people, but really increasingly marks us all. I suppose like September 11th marks us as a people as well. Can you just talk with us as time has unfolded Certainly, we know that the war has resumed in terms of, kinetic warfare. And but can you just talk with us from your perspective? Like, what does it feel like has happened since the last time we talked 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, no, it's been, in the interim, obviously there was a pause in the war effort, and there was hostages released, but then, the ceasefire broke down, rockets were fired at Israel again, and as you say, kinetic war began again. The real issue is, I think, that there is still a massive lack of understanding of what to do next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no real good option, no real good plan on what to do after Hamas is destroyed. I mean, Israel is committed to taking out Hamas, like, in the way that they went after Nazis after World War II, and the way they went after the Munich terrorists that killed the Israeli Olympians. They're going to just find them wherever they are in the world. But that doesn't really solve the more existential issue, is what happens to Gaza itself. Mm-hmm. In the peace deal between Israel and Egypt back in the Camp David Accord under Carter, in the deal itself, Egypt says, we do not want Gaza. Like, that's not ours. Don't give it to us. We don't want those people. And it's, to me, that says something about, basically this hot potato that has been Gaza for a long time. I mean, that was 1978. That was a long time ago. I mean, I was a young man then, 5. And so it what presents itself as no real good options, because, one option is the Palestinian Authority come in and they take charge, but they will be seen by the people as puppets, basically. Plus Mahmoud Abbas, who's the head of the Palestinian Authority, he doesn't have even the credibility in the West Bank, and it's, he could die at any moment. He's a very old man who often has health complications. There have been several times in the last couple of years where I thought, oh man, this is it. This is when he goes, and he sticks around. But at some point, death comes for us all. And so that's and there's no great plan B. There's going to be a warlordism after he dies, because no one's really in charge. Option B is that an international force comes in to take over Gaza. I don't think there's a president in the world that has enough political capital to put his soldiers or her soldiers on the ground in Gaza. It's just like, no one has that. And then the third option is Israeli occupation, which the world already hates anyways. And so it's a tough choice. And the world is not going to be helpful in that anyways, because they've proven themselves whenever possible to undermine the Israelis. It's the only country in the world that's, Douglas Murray said this, the only country in the world that's expected to fight to a draw. They're expected not to win. And that's the problem, because that's how we got to where we are with Hamas.
You will hear people talk about the desire and, the right of Palestinian people to self-governance and self-rule. That is largely dependent on a people who have an infrastructure upon which to build prosperity. That does not exist anymore. I mean, I think it is safe to say that at the end of this, whatever else will be true of the place we call Gaza, it will need to be utterly rebuilt. That is going to be a huge global conversation in terms of who is willing to do that. How much money are people willing to invest in that? And I mean, I don't have any doubt that there will be countries that are willing to put forward the capital to do that. But I'm also very aware that every time we hear reference to something in Gaza, it has a Christian name attached to it. It's a Baptist hospital, or it's a, the language related to this is Christians have invested heavily in Gaza for the last two generations. And during that time, terrorism has been a place where terrorism has grown and been bred. So we as Christians, the Christians who have engaged there, have not done a good job helping the people move in the direction of self-governance and self-rule that's meaningful.
Yeah, no, the problem is that like they were given that opportunity several times since when Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, saying it's all like it's yours, guys, thrive. And actually, at the time when they left, there was greenhouses in Gaza that provided 25% of the world's organic vegetables. And when Israel left, they turned them over to the Gazans, and the Gazans burned them to the ground. That is like. It's a real conundrum. What do you do with these people nobody wants to have in their country? Even there was, like I said, the Egyptians are like, no, we do not want them. Don't give them to us. Nobody else wants them, and that presents a real challenge. And it's also, I mean, there are only 700 Christians left in Gaza out of a population of 2 million, which basically makes it the most religiously and ethnically homogenous place on the earth that I could think of. Maybe North Korea is more ethnically homogenous, but that would be it, right? Like there's just it is a very and I think that presents its own challenge. Yeah, it's the way forward here is not ripe with good options. I mean, on your self-determination point, I mean, there's different kinds of self-determination too. There is there's the regular state model, as like the state of New York or the state of Washington, elects members to a national government, but they also elect the local mayor and county council, et cetera. And then there's the Washington, D.C. or Puerto Rico, which have self-determination. They elect their own, basically territorial representatives, and they have a seat in Congress, but they don't have authority. And so there are different layers of self-determination. I think having self-determination is a real value, but to your point, it also matters who is in charge and what's going to take, I think, to govern the Gazans and the people of the West Bank is going to be, the PA currently rules it with a very strong hand. I mean, there was a demonstration or an attempted demonstration of 6 people in pro-Hamas supporters in Ramallah, and in about 5 minutes, that whole thing got shut down, and all those people that came to march were carried off in the Palestinian prisons. So there isn't any like, the number of Jeffersonian liberals in the West Bank and Gaza is very small. And we just got to keep that in mind. It's a different place.
It is a different place. We're going to continue our conversation with Luke Moon here in just a moment. You guys can always weigh in and you can suggest questions that you'd like to hear answered. The text line is open, 877-933-2484. You're listening to Mornings with Carmen. Listen to Faith Radio live or on demand no matter where you go. Download the free Faith Radio app at your app store today. We've been hearing in the news headlines today about an event that took place in the city of Philadelphia, outside of a falafel shop that is owned and operated by Jewish individuals, and the mayor of the city of Philadelphia, the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, others have said this was not a pro-Palestinian event. This crossed the line into overt anti-Semitism. And so Luke Moon is here with us. I know of no better person to ask this question of where is that line?
Well, I mean, hopefully that line started before the anti-Jewish deli rally. I mean, the real definition, anything that is uniquely targeting Jews for being Jews or Israel for being Israel, that holds them to a standard that's not applied to anybody else. That's the kind of stuff that's anti-Semitic. And I think one of the things that I've been talking to people about, kind of some silver linings about this war. One, it has been that the rest of America finally sees, I think, what I have been seeing for a long time, which is the degree to which anti-Semitism is a real evil in this country. We've been fighting it for several years, many years now. And I would go to events where I would talk to Christians, and they say, well, anti-Semitism is still happening. That's a real thing. And now everybody sees it. I think the other thing is, Carmen, is that I think people are realizing that what starts with the Jews doesn't end with the Jews, right? Like there is you probably remember back in the days when we were doing a lot of awareness raising about Christian persecution in the Middle East, in Iraq and Jordan and Egypt, etc. And one of the things that was commonly said by the jihadis was, first the Saturday people and then the Sunday people. First they come after the Jews and then they come after the Christians. And I think that has manifested itself here in the United States, because they started protesting, outside Jewish locations. And then as of, this week, there's been a lot of tree lighting ceremonies around the country that are also being shut down. The one in Rockefeller Center here in New York City there was a massive demonstration against it. So it didn't end with the Jews. It turned to, you're a Christian holiday, we'll go after that too. And even in Bethlehem, like not the one in Pennsylvania, but the one in Israel, they shut down their planned Christmas. And it just shows the reality that it doesn't end with the Jews. It starts with them. But, the degree to which we're grafted into the blessings of the Jewish people, we're also blessed. We're also grafted in to the persecution. So it's not going to end with them, and we got to be awake for it.
How do we respond? How do Christians rightly respond? And it's okay to be repetitive. Don't worry if it's things that you and I have talked about before, maybe on several occasions. It bears repeating. Sometimes we don't hear it until we are attuned to hear it, when something has finally captured our attention and our heart. And so how do we as Christians respond?
Well, I would say, so we have this thing where we encourage people to bring a bouquet of white roses to a Jewish location. It could be a synagogue, a Jewish day school, a Jewish community center, and just say, hey, I'm a Christian. I'm standing in friendship with you. I recognize it's a difficult time. There's a bunch of menorah lightings that are going to take place across the country on Thursday of this week. I encourage Christians to go to those menorah lightings, bring flowers, and just say, hey, I'm a friend. That is, I'm telling you, you will watch people cry in front of you. It's incredibly powerful, and it's a gesture of what I think we as Christians are supposed to do at this moments like this, and just show love.
Yeah, that is really good. And in some communities, menorah lighting ceremonies have been canceled. Maybe you could host one. Maybe you could reach out to Jewish individuals and families who you know in your community and just say, hey, are you having a menorah lighting? Can I come? If you're not having a menorah lighting, could we host one? So this Thursday
that would be incredible. That would be incredible.
Right?
It would be really, I mean, listen, if Christians around the country, heck, around the world showed up all over the country at the menorah lightings, just in saying, hey, we're here for you, we're with you, like, it would be immensely powerful, like probably more powerful than just about anything that you would do in relation to Jewish people. Yeah.
A person just texted in and said, hey, I'm listening to your show right now, driving to work in downtown St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm faced with a brand new billboard on the freeway that says Save Gaza. It's paid for by the Anti-Arab Defamation League. How should I think about that? And how should I, so how should I think about that? How should I respond? Billboards, bumper stickers, is an interesting thing happening across the country.
Well, I actually think we should pray for Gaza. I think we should pray for the people of Gaza to thrive and flourish without terrorism, without terrorists running them, right? I think we can pray simultaneously for the peace of Gaza and for the end of Hamas. Actually, I think we should pray for the end of Hamas, and any Hamas-like groups that want to come after them. Because that's the real reason the Palestinians have been suffering, is they have bad leaders who are more committed to destroying Jews than they are to serving and loving their own people.
That's so good. Luke, as always, thank you so much. We're so grateful for you. If you guys want to connect and find out more information about coming alongside Christians who are seeking to engage positively in the Middle East, check out what is happening at philosproject.org. Thank you for those of you who are texting in this morning. Thank you for those of you who are praying. Thank you for those of you who are saying, hey, I'm checking out where the menorah lightings are going to be in my community. I'm reaching out right now on my own phone via text to my friend Cheryl. She is Jewish. She lives in my city, and I'm going to find out where are the menorah lightings happening in my town on Thursday night, and I'm going to find one close to me that I can attend. Maybe you could do the same. It's one simple act. Yeah, you can take white flowers with you, white roses in particular, and just say, I'm a friend, or you can just show up. Like, you don't have to take anything but yourself and the peace of Christ, which passes all understanding, that dwells within you. So let's be proactive on this front this week as our Jewish friends and neighbors begin the celebration of Hanukkah. You're listening to Mornings with Carmen. We got another hour up next. Thanks for listening to Mornings with Carmen LaBerge. Podcasts like this are available because of your support. If it's important to you to hear things that encourage your faith, click the link in the show notes to give now. And thanks.